Welcome to E2Talks. It's a podcast in which we chat about the English language landscape, conversing about topics relevant to students like you. In this episode, Jay talks to Alex, an E2 expert teacher, about E2School. They talk about what E2 is, who Alex is, and what the future holds for fully online language learning.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jay, and usually I just say I'm one of the expert teachers here at E2 Language, and I'm here with Alex, who is also an expert teacher at E2 Language. Hello, Alex.
Hello, Jay.
How's it going?
It's great.
That's good.
I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Cool. Well, we're actually not going to talk about E2 Language today. We're going to talk about E2School, which is very exciting. So we're going to talk about what is it, why we built it, or why we're building it. We're currently building it. And we're going to tell you about what the courses are on E2School, which are really cool, and what the future of language learning might look like, which I'm terribly excited about. So maybe, Alex, you can answer the first question. What is E2School?
What is E2School? Well, it's an online English learning platform, essentially. And what it is at the moment is a work in progress. So we've got a few courses that are up and a few courses that are under construction.
Yeah.
And it's basically a sister course to our other website, which is E2. It's a sister school, rather, to E2 Language, which is our other language platform.
Yeah. So how does E2School differ from E2 Language?
Well, I imagine a lot of our listeners are pretty familiar with E2 Language, which is the test prep wing of things. We've got OET, IELTS, TOEFL, PTE preparation courses on that site. And it's each course is a pretty substantial chunk of learning. There are heaps of activities, and we have live classes, tutorials, assessments. So it's really focused on getting people ready for their language test.
And it's very high level, right?
Yeah, it is.
Like it's really top of the mountain. When you do an IELTS test, you're at the top of the mountain.
Super challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I mean, those tests are so difficult. And so what we found really is a lot of people came to that website, but probably lacking the language level to deal with those tests or to get the score that they need in those tests. So E2School was born out of that, basically. People who need to really build up their foundation of English or get some remedial grammar help. So E2School is less about test preparation, more about language learning.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people fail those big tests, don't they? I think some of them have like 50% failure rates, some of those high stakes English tests.
Yeah, OET.
I'm not going to name names.
Oh, me neither.
Yeah, but they're tough. They're really tough. And I think one of the reasons why half the people fail is because they go in completely unprepared. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, that is true. And so that's on the one hand where E2 Language has a really important role to play, because a lot of people, they do just need to learn some strategies and get across the time management and the stress of a high stakes test. But yeah, there are those other people who it's not about strategies and tips and techniques.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it's about language. So if you're, let's say, take IELTS as an example, if you're aiming for IELTS 7 or 8 and you took the test and you got 5, it's unlikely that a strategy is going to help you.
Yeah.
You've got to deal with the problems of your language.
Yeah.
So they're going to be grammar, vocab, essentially, and also familiarity with the kind of topics that you're going to face in a test like PTE and IELTS is very different to everyday language.
Yeah, I find it, been doing this for a long time, and I've had spoken to a number of candidates who are stuck at IELTS 5.5 on writing, for example, and they know the structures back to front. They understand the test back to front, but that's not the problem. And you see it immediately when you see their essay that it's just like, okay, it's grammar, it's vocab, or if speaking, it's pronunciation, these fundamental things.
Right. It's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow for some people. They don't want to accept that actually there's quite a few months, sometimes years of hard work ahead of them to go from a band 5 to a band 8 in IELTS. It's not going to happen overnight. It's probably not going to happen in 6 months either. So I guess with that in mind, that's where E2School.
Well, it's not going to happen in 6 months in a language school,
Well,
right?
That brings us to.
Yeah, right. So, yes. So I guess it's worth talking about why we built E2School. And as you said, we want to help out those people who are struggling with the fundamental skills, not just the test strategy stuff. But I reckon we've built something with E2School that is fundamentally different, certainly different to how you learn in a language school. And I feel like we're on the edge of building something that will transform the way people learn, certainly English. And what I mean by transform is I think they're going to learn it far more quickly, and I think they're going to learn it far more deeply as well. It's just going to be much more efficient and effective language learning. Can I tell you why?
Why?
Well, thank you for asking there, Alex. Because what we've done is we have the best teaching principles. Like imagine the best English teacher in the world and imagine the best course content in the world, and you boil that down and you put it onto the computer and it's super personalized. So imagine if the computer knew exactly what your deficiencies were with English, like that it knew what you were weak in. It knew what you were good in, and that's great, but that doesn't really matter. It needs to know what you're weak in. So, and imagine if it could target those weak areas and improve your, for example, prepositions or use of articles or pronunciation of the th sound or whatever it is in your language. And that's what we're getting to with this E2School stuff, which is really exciting.
And that's what makes it so much better than just taking an average course or buying a textbook where you're just covering the same content as everybody else. The benefit of learning online is that it can be very personalised, tailored to your needs. And those gaps that you've got, those gaps that are preventing your progress in language and might be preventing your test success, you can close those gaps.
Yeah, because when you're in language schools are fabulous and they're really fun, and I've studied languages overseas and it's such a wonderful experience. But for people who are like, let's say they're working professionals, they just want to get their IELTS score or whatever it is, they want to do it quickly and they may not want to have the grand adventure of studying, they just want to get something done. So when you're in a classroom, there's one teacher, there's 25 or 30 students, the teacher's teaching one particular thing. It may be too easy, it may be too hard. It's certainly not personalised. So personalisation is one aspect of E2School, which is going to be radical. And one of the ways that we're going to be able to do that really, really well is by diagnostic testing. When you go to the doctor, right, and you're sick, and the doctor takes your blood and the doctor comes back a week later, we'll be able to do it instantly. Imagine the doctor could instantly test your blood and say, you've got this, this, and this wrong with you, take this medication. Well, that's the analogy for what we want to do with language learning. You take a diagnostic test, it says you're weak here, here, and here. Here are the lessons that you need to do.
So it's all about efficiency.
It'll make it super efficient. But then also, I guess everyone's done a bit of online learning. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly with online learning. And for language learning, to be honest, I've only ever seen the ugly. Well, some good, but most of it's not good. Most of it's pretty bad. So I think for the first time, people are going to experience language learning where they go, oh, this actually works. I don't know if you've used Duolingo, for example, but it's fun, great gamification, lots of cha-ching, bonus points, etc. But there's lots of scientific studies now that have said that it's basically ineffective. So we want to build something that changes your brain, that gets into your neurons.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of gimmicky apps and sites out there. As you said, and some of them, they're fun and they're effective to some extent, but it can be hard to take that knowledge or to take that game that you've been playing and apply it to real life or apply it in your essay or in your speaking test. So that's part of what our challenge has been. How do you build language and get students to learn a grammar point, for instance, but then they walk away from the computer and they can actually use it in real life. They're not just pushing a button and ticking a box. They're actually producing that language, which is the goal, to take that knowledge, whether it's vocab or grammar, from passive knowledge into active knowledge.
Yeah. And also what's so wonderful about doing this via a computer as opposed to a textbook is it becomes multimodal, which means you're not just reading grammar, but all of a sudden you're hearing grammar or you're seeing grammar through a video, for example. And so it's coming at you like in real life through all these different channels, through your ears and through your eyes, not just reading it, which is really exciting. But one of the other reasons why we're building E2School is, and I've been thinking about this a lot, obviously in society there's lots of inequalities, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's wealth inequalities, and there might be inequalities between the genders and all this sort of stuff, but there's a massive inequality between native English speakers having an edge on everybody else who has to learn English. Like it's so easy for me to speak English, and someone else has to learn this thing and then compete against me in the job market or whatever it is. So that's just a massive inequality there. So we want to make it easier for everyone who speaks English as a second or third language or whatever. But also, one of the big inequalities that I find disturbing is that the level of education that people receive based on their wealth backgrounds, right? Because if you're wealthy, you can come and study at a university English language course at a university in Australia or an English language school in Australia or the US or Canada and have one of the best educations possible in English. But the number of students that actually are able to do that would account for less than 0.01%. It's a tiny percentage of the population that have the privilege to do that. So E2School, hopefully what we'll be able to do is provide a top world-class English language education to 99.9% of the population.
I've heard you describe that as the democratization of language learning.
I like that. That's nice.
You made it up.
Did I?
Maybe it was me, after all.
Yeah, well, I think I may have made this word up, which is pronunciationism, which is, pronunciationism is, there's only two ways that someone can recognize that you're a non-native English speaker, right? One is through your grammar, through your written grammar.
Yeah.
They can see in your sentences that you write that you're not a native English speaker. So we'll be able to fix that through our grammar course, which we'll talk about in a second. But the other one is pronunciation. We can hear that you're a non-native English speaker. And I read this study which looked at what the most liked pronunciation is in the world. Can you guess what it is? Which type of English is the most favoured or most?
Surely it's Australian.
No, I don't think so. It was actually male British accent is the most beautiful pronunciation of English, right?
Well, that's the Hugh Grant factor.
Exactly. And unfortunately, the least favoured one was Vietnamese. I think it was Vietnamese males speaking English because Vietnamese their pronunciation is so different to English. It's hard to understand, right? So there was this big scale of first languages compared to anyway. So that has a massive bearing because let's say you're a Vietnamese student, you're studying in Australia, and you go and you're in a job interview and you're struggling with your pronunciation. Huge discrimination factors there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? It's just unfair. This person might be really competent, but anyway, so we've built a course for that called Speaking Lab. So might be worth talking about.
Why don't we get on to the courses that are up on E2School?
Now that I've finished my rant, yeah.
So do you want to start by telling us a bit more about pronunciation?
Yeah.
And Speaking Lab, the course?
Yeah. So right now there's sort of 3 parts to pronunciation you can think about. The first level is what's called phonemes or the sounds of English, and there are 44 sounds like b, k, th, m, whatever they are.
The dreaded th.
Th, yeah, th. And so we've currently covered that, which is really good. The second level, which you can think about, is consonant clusters, which are when the sounds come together, like cr and br and dr.
It's a real challenge for some languages, right?
Oh, yeah. And some, like let's say you're a Thai speaker, some of these sounds come perfectly natural to you. Some of them are incredibly difficult to say because they're so unnatural, because they just don't exist in your language. So that's the second level. And then the third level on top of the sounds and the clusters are like the rhythm of the language, the intonation, the word stress, or connected speech. That's when you put it all together. So we're slowly building this out. It's called Speaking Lab, and that's going to be a really cool course. And what you'll be able to do with this course is, because only some of these things are relevant, you don't need to study all 44 sounds. What you can do at the beginning of the course is put in your first language. Let's say it's Arabic, and it will tell you the exact things that you need to study because you're an Arabic first language speaker. Cool?
Again, very efficient.
Yeah.
So pronunciation is one of those things I know as an ex-classroom teacher, and among my colleagues, a lot of teachers are really reluctant to deal with it. One, because they don't feel confident themselves. But the other reason, as you said, is that everyone in that class has got completely different problems. So you're not going to spend an hour working on the distinction between L and R when 80% of the class, it's no problem.
That's right.
Whereas for that other 20%, as you said, that's a huge barrier to them in their communication. And if they're going for jobs, applying for things, they need to deal with that issue to overcome their communication barrier. But it's hard to do in a classroom. So online is a much better way.
I would say it's almost impossible to do in a classroom. If you have a mixed background of students, you're not going to satisfy everybody. You can't. Let alone actually teach pronunciation, which is really hard to teach, right?
Yeah. I think teachers are not really trained that well in how to actually teach pronunciation. And as you said, there are different layers to it. So you might know the phonemic chart, but can you teach that effectively?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, are you going to deal with connected speech? There's a lot behind it, and it's all very individual based on the mother tongue.
Yeah. So just a couple of things lastly on Speaking Lab is, the first language thing is super important. But the second thing that we have in Speaking Lab, which is pretty radical, is some artificial intelligence. A little robot is in the computer that can give you automatic feedback on your pronunciation. So you might say a word or a sentence, and you click submit, and within a second or two, it tells you precisely what you're mispronouncing. And then
based on a male British accent?
It's actually a sort of hybrid between American and British, which is interesting. Yeah.
E2School is the future of language learning. It improves your English quickly and deeply. We have courses for grammar, pronunciation, general English, and test skills. You can sign up for free, and remember to tell your family and friends about E2School. We want everyone to speak perfect English. Check out E2School.com.
Do you want to tell us about Test Ready?
Yes, I would love to. So Test Ready is one of the other courses that's up on E2School at the moment. And this course is the biggest link to E2 language. This is a course that came about after, I guess, we saw that a lot of students were struggling with PTE, IELTS, TOEFL, and we felt like there's a missing link for them, or there's a missing course. So they might have been aiming for IELTS 7 and they scored IELTS 5.5. Students like that, there's general English available to them, but a general English course, it's not that relevant if you're someone who's planning to take IELTS or PTE to immigrate or to get your profession recognised or get into uni, something like that. So you don't want to learn how to go shopping and how to book a movie ticket. Those things are not super exciting to you. So Test Ready course builds around the topics that people are going to face in high-stakes language tests, and they draw on the tasks that come from PTE, things like gap fill, listen and repeat, writing essays, of course, from IELTS, tasks like true, false, not given. So these would be familiar if you've been preparing for a language test, but the level of the content is a bit lower, a bit more accessible, a bit more manageable. So you would hopefully pop out the end of a test-ready lesson with a huge bank of vocab that you've repeated over and over through the course in different contexts, throughout the lesson rather. as well as you'll have more confidence. You'll be across a bunch of topics. So one of the first lessons we made was the crime one, and that came from...
I actually wrote an essay on crime once in the IELTS test.
Did you?
Yeah, on jail times or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in my experience, having been a IELTS teacher for a long time, I know that whenever we came across that topic, crime, everyone in the class just freaked out because for some reason they have almost no language to talk about crime. Hey?
Well, they weren't criminals, obviously.
Well, it's hard to know in some cases. But, after a day or two of working through some material, reading some stuff, listening to some stuff, talking about crime, suddenly if they go to a language test and they get your topic about jail time, they're much more able to deal with it. But without that lesson, when are they ever going to learn, if they're not a criminal, when are they ever going to learn that language? You're not talking about it at work. You're not really dealing with it in a general English course.
No.
So, we build the course, I guess, from the knowledge of what students are lacking and trying to present it to them in a palatable way that's not exactly test preparation, but it's not
fun,
general English. Yeah, it's fun. It's interesting. The topics are engaging. And the live classes too, we sort of extend from where let's say there's a lesson on lab-grown meat.
Cool, yeah.
You know about that?
Yeah, I wonder if vegetarians would get into that.
Well, that's the whole thing. They can because it's... Anyway. So there's a test-ready lesson on that. In the live class, we go through all that vocab again. We extend the vocab and we deal with a similar topic. So what I mean is the live classes, they really supplement what they're doing in their own time on test ready. So it's kind of a gateway to the test, but also a booster for those who are preparing for the test. They're going to build up their language and topic knowledge. And it's like a turbocharge.
There's live classes. They're pretty amazing, actually, aren't they? Zoom just did a case study on E2 language because we're using their technology so well. They actually published an article about us, E2 language.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think these live classes that we're delivering on E2 language, which we will soon deliver on E2School, they're great. They're just, log on 4 p.m. wherever you are in the world. There's the fantastic teacher with the fantastic material and it's a great way to learn. Very motivating, engaging, etc.
Yeah, I think also that's what makes the platform, E2 Language and E2School, different from just learning language online because you do have a real teacher available to you. And in the live classes, you can come along, ask your questions, you can chat with other students in there. So it's a really good blend of real life and virtual life.
Yeah, isn't it? Now, what about you as the test preparation expert? What's your background with, you're an IELTS examiner, right?
Yeah, I was. I was until the start of this year.
Wow. How long did you do that for?
For about 10 years. So I was a writing examiner and then a speaking examiner for most of the time.
How many essays do you think you've marked?
I couldn't count. Thousands,
Wow.
yeah.
Right.
And thousands of speaking tests, I would imagine.
Right.
That many? Yeah, 10 years. It was a pretty long time.
So you feel qualified to be writing this test-ready course?
Yeah. I think I've got a very good insight into... I think as an examiner, you really see... It's interesting because you're marking tests from people all over the world, but it's amazing how much everybody seems to make the same mistakes. There's really like a top 5 error list.
Yeah.
Which is what we deal with in E2 language. But you sort of get to see that there are just gaps in people's grammar and in people's vocabulary. And there are just deficiencies that a lot of people share. But I was also an IELTS preparation teacher for a long time. So from that angle, I also saw... I think that gave me a lot of empathy as an examiner because I saw the struggle of these students and just the devastation if they missed their score, the elation when they, 6.5, just a nightmare. But I understand that something like PTE, OET, it's an absolute life changer for people. It's they call it a high stakes test, and it really is.
Yeah.
It's such high stakes, and I think being a teacher, you can really see that. You can see how important the test is, and it gives, working at E2 Language, E2School, gives me the chance to bring in the material that I know is good, the content I know is good, and just scrap all that other stuff. You know, if you're at a language school teaching a curriculum, as a teacher, you would know 80% of this is rubbish, but I've got to teach it. It's written in the curriculum, whereas we have the freedom to draw on, and not just me, our team of experts and ex-examiners. They know what works, and we've got a great chance to share it with people.
Brilliant. Cool.
Shall we talk grammar?
Yes, of course.
I know that's your favourite topic.
That's my favourite thing. All right,
Tell us about it.
So we've got a grammar is really, well, it's just hard to learn in general, and it's super hard to get right on the computer. There's basically nothing out. I've never seen anything that works on the computer, on the internet for grammar. But until now, well, one of the courses we have is called Grammar Review, and it's pretty much a strict grammar course. What it does is it takes you through all the different parts of speech, or the types of words in English, like verbs and nouns and adjectives and articles and adverbs and conjunctions, etc. But does it in a really clever way where, again, you're not just reading grammar, but it's coming at you through listening, it's coming at you through reading, you have to write it, all this sort of stuff. And it's also taught to you. You're not teaching yourself like you would through a grammar textbook, which are impenetrable and impossible to read. We have lovely teachers telling you very simply how these structures work.
Real life teachers.
Real human beings, yeah. So that's a cool one. That's a really nice one if you just want to get your hands dirty with grammar and fix up some of your mistakes.
So if someone's a low level, like elementary level, they could use it, or someone is an advanced level?
I think they have to have a pretty good grasp of English to use that course. So it's more built for this sort of IELTS 5.5 up to anywhere, up to 8 or 9 even. But we do have some courses for the low levels, like beginner, not quite beginners. Let's call it low intermediate, and then intermediate, and then upper intermediate, I think would be a good way to describe that. And those 3 courses, or you could think about them like general English. So if anyone out there who's studying on E2 Language has some friends, some cousins, some nieces and nephews, put them onto E2School, because they can start to build their English now, because we've got these really cute, fun courses. And what these general English courses are tied to are the Cambridge English tests. So you don't even know it. You're studying general English and improving your vocab and your grammar and your pronunciation, etc. But at the same time, you're actually preparing for the Cambridge Key test.
Accidental test preparation.
It's pretty clever.
Nice.
Or the Cambridge Preliminary or the Cambridge First. Which, sure, I mean, that's fabulous. I mean, if you're an 18-year-old or 20-year-old or whatever, or even later, you can go and take one of these Cambridge tests, and it looks fantastic on your CV when you're going for a job to say that you got X score on the Cambridge First or Cambridge Key or whatever. And the way that we teach this online through these online courses, again, it's really fun, it's really interactive, it's really engaging, it's supplemented by live classes, so it's motivating. We've got some good ingredients there.
And will students be able to get their work assessed?
Yep. Yep, as part of the paid package, you can have your speaking and writing assessed by our expert teachers and get some feedback, which is really critical. They're going to be fun. I wish that I could do these courses in my second language, which is Indonesian. I would love to have a nice online course for Indonesian, but it doesn't exist yet. So get your friends and family onto that one. That'll be cool. I think one of the missing pieces of the puzzle that we haven't got, and which we'll have to do, is vocabulary. Yes. Do you have any sort of vision for that in your mind?
This is something that we talk about all the time, and I'm always reading about what's the best way to learn vocab. And this is a question at the end of every live class. Somebody asks, how do I improve my vocab? Or can you send me a list of vocabulary, which to me is the biggest waste of time to download a list of vocabulary. But yeah, I think this is something that we're working on, and we're dabbling in it in Test Ready. It's a matter of repetition. It's a matter of personalization, recontextualization. Like how do you get somebody to learn a new word and that word is actually going to be of use to them? They're going to know it when they read it. They're going to say it in a conversation.
Understand it when they hear it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of levels to it, and there's differing research, some that say you have to meet a word 17 times before you know it. Others that say you have to meet it 50 times.
Whoa.
Some up in the 70s. So yeah, I think there's definitely scope for a course which is just about vocab.
Do you think it would be a phone app? Would lend itself to a phone app better so they can do it on the train or the bus?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it'll come down a bit to, I mean, there are vocab apps already, but they just don't go that extra step of bringing that vocab into your active language.
Yeah.
So it's all quite passive. You're just playing games, and you might recognize the word when you see it, but it's never going to come out of your mouth in a language test.
You need to say it. You need to hear it.
Yeah. So I think that's something on the horizon.
Yeah.
For us, and I think it would be of great value to all language learners.
Oh, I mean, if
not
you're
just test prep.
For sure. I mean, vocabulary is the building blocks. If you had you can't just have grammar because it's just rules. Rules with no words is useless. But even if you go to another country and you just have vocab, you can at least get by. You can get around. It's a good. It's the best starting point.
Yeah,
It's
and there are things
important.
that exist like the academic word list, which everyone would agree is sort of the essentials to deal with academic text and content. But a list of words is just not useful.
Yeah.
It has to be more than that. And I think that's the challenge for course builders like us.
Yeah. One of the interesting bits of research that I've seen on vocabulary is high frequency word lists. So it turns out that, the top 500 words in English, for example, account for something like 80% of the use. So there are these certain subset of words that are just extremely common. So that's a good starting point. You should probably want to start, at least if you're a beginner or lower intermediate, with common vocabulary. The problem is with this subset of words is that a lot of them are grammatical words like the or to or of, for example, which don't really have any meaning. And a lot of the verbs in there are all irregular, which this is just complexity. Anyway, we have to deal with this problem and make it easy for the learner. But language is so complex. It's just a minefield of complexity. But yeah, it's pretty cool. We'll get there with that app, I think. It'll be really good.
And so speaking of the future, what do you think, what's next in language learning, in online learning?
All right.
For E2?
Okay, so I think at some point somebody's going to build some technology that is going to transform the way people learn languages. Nobody's done it yet. People have dabbled. There's been a few little breakthroughs, but no one's pulled it all together pulled all the different parts of language, vocab, grammar, pronunciation, reading, listening, writing, test preparation into one platform in a way that works. I think whoever does that first is going to own the space.
And?
Well, also, it's one thing to have a platform and a self-study platform. A lot of people are very self-motivated and they can do that. A lot of people aren't. And a lot of people like to go somewhere to do something. Like, for example, I go to the gym, not that you can tell, but and the reason I go to the gym is because I'm motivated when I'm at the gym. Everyone else is working out and I've got my runners on and I feel like working out as well. I just don't do it at home, right? So people like to go places to do stuff.
There's some accountability.
Yeah, there's accountability and there's just sort of something nice about being surrounded by people doing the same thing, right? So I think language schools aren't dead. They're not going to die, but I think they're going to revolutionize. I think they're going to transform. And the way they're going to transform is it's not going to be teacher to many students. it just doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work well, and it's never worked well. I think what's going to happen in the future is you sit down at the computer and it says, "Hello, Alex, I know exactly what you need to work on today. You're weak in this, this, and this. Here are the perfect multimedia, multimodal, interactive lessons that you need to do." And you do them, and there's a teacher there, but the teacher's not teaching you. The computer's teaching you, and it might be one of us from our Melbourne offices, for example, live streaming through to you, or
So the teacher's virtually there?
It'd be totally cool. But there are these people around the room called guides or assistant teachers, I guess, and you can raise your hand if you have some confusion either with the system or with the particular bit of language you're struggling with. So excuse me, can you please explain this a little bit more? And then they explain it, and then you're back into the computer system, and away you go. I think
the best of both worlds, the traditional classroom plus the futuristic technology.
Yep. That's it. Teachers are fantastic. You need teachers. They're great. They're never going to go away. But their role is going to change significantly, which, by the way, is going to be a relief for teachers because teaching is so hard. Right? You've done it.
Right.
I've done it. Trying to teach a language class to 30 students who have all differing levels, different first language backgrounds. English plus, teaching English, you're not just teaching English, you're like a master of 7 different subjects: pronunciation, grammar, reading, writing, listening. You know, it's so tough. I'd be a maths teacher any day of the week rather than an English teacher.
Oh, not me.
I tried it once and it was, it wasn't very good.
But people still, as you said, they like to have someone available to them when they're studying,
Sure.
someone in the room or somebody on the screen, whatever it is, someone who's there for immediate help.
Yes.
Or if they have a question, someone will answer it straight away. There's still a demand for that.
Totally. And I think these sorts of language schools, let's call them future language schools, driven by technology, are going to be super popular in countries where English is not the first language. So imagine being in Ho Chi Minh City, for example, going to the future language school, sitting down, having native English speakers teach you. You've got your Vietnamese English teachers to help you when you're stuck. You're being provided the best possible English language education. There's no restrictions. I think it can be really cost effective. It's not going to be expensive. It's going to be fully, here's the technology word, scalable, because we can have one teacher from Melbourne live streaming across to 5,000 students all at the same time. This is where we want to go eventually with E2School. After we've developed all the software and we've really worked it all out, I think we want to start building a few of these schools.
And so obviously much cheaper for the student than a trip to Australia to uproot their life and their family for 2 years.
Yeah.
But still getting a quality education.
Of the price. Yeah, precisely. Yeah, it'll eliminate that discrepancy between the rich and the poor, I think, in terms of providing them with the education that they want.
Watch this space.
I'm a little bit excited. Yeah. Anyway, it's been this. I should just say, this isn't just all fantasy. We've been now E2 Language we've been doing this for 8 years with E2 Language, and we have we have a vast knowledge of how to do this. A lot of different experiences with the technology, with the language learning methodologies, with the content writing, with the online teaching. We're pulling it all together. Yeah. Anyway, I think that'd be a good place to end the podcast.
Yes, on an exciting, hopeful note, like every good essay should end.
Oh, yeah, nice. But everyone should go to www.e2school.com and check out the website and sign up, and certainly let everyone know on your Facebook page and your peer group, let them all know that they can study English. Well, a lot of it's going to be for free. There will be some paid courses, but
Yeah, we'll
check
see
it out
you
for
there.
yourselves. Cool. Thanks, Alex.
All right, thanks, Jay.
Thanks for listening to E2 Talks. Remember to check out E2School.com and choose one of our courses on test skills, pronunciation, grammar, or general English. Thanks.